Tourism in South Africa is on the rise with 10.5 million visitors last year. Now, in his State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa said South Africa intends to raise this to 21 million visitors by 2030. Now, many believe the tourism sector could be the key to job creation in this country. For more on this, or for a discussion on this, I'm joined by the Tourism Minister, Derek Hanekom, from our Cape Town studios. Good evening, Minister. Thanks very much for your time. Now, over 50 million people may have visited this country over the past 5 years, as the President tweeted this morning. But I'm sure you'll agree that South African tourism is nowhere near reaching its potential. What's the problem?
Good evening. Okay, hello, Vuyo. I wish I could see your face and I could tell whether you're frowning, scowling or smiling, but we'll do our best. I'll assume the best at least. Well, I mean, there are, let's say, matters that can be addressed to get greater numbers. At the same time, one should say we've done a lot of things right, and the private sector has responded very well. So that's why the numbers have increased. With a bit of tweaking on making it easier for people to come to South Africa, we could significantly increase these numbers.
Well, the ambiguities around South Africa's visa regime aren't helping your cause, are they?
They certainly didn't help the cause. What we've seen, notwithstanding some of the visa difficulties, we've seen consistent growth over the last 5 years. 2015 was a bad year because that was the Ebola crisis combined with the introduction of some visa requirements. Good recovery in 2016 and 17. 2018, probably the biggest single factor was the Cape Town drought, the dry period in Cape Town. So, you know, the tourism, while it's quite a resilient sector, is also quite vulnerable. You know, shocks, it will be experienced in countries like Sri Lanka. You know, you have an attack of that nature and numbers will go down immediately. So we've been in the fortunate space of having had consistent growth. The visa difficulty, well, largely overcome, but not entirely. We could do an awful lot better. We know that President Ramaphosa is driving it, and we know he'll continue to. We had a particular challenge in 2015 with the introduction of visa requirements, or rather travel requirements for minors, and that affected mainly our big source markets, the countries that don't need visas to come to South Africa. Well, that is largely a thing of the past. So we've now brought what the requirements for minors traveling, in particular with single parents, very much to the same level as countries like Canada, USA, the UK. So that's a problem that is largely sorted out. The difficulty lies with countries that need visas to come to South Africa. And there I think we have a twofold challenge. One is to re-examine, you know, which countries do. Some of the countries should they really need a visa to come to South Africa? And then, if so, introducing measures to make it a lot quicker and a lot easier to get that visa. The Department of Home Affairs has said very clearly that they're going to be piloting an e-visa system this year. Now, if people can do online visa applications, that'll make a huge difference. And I think things like that can really help us achieve that ambitious target of 21 million tourists by 2030.
Let's talk about what this country offers tourists who come here. I mean, South Africa is, of course, not, you know, the Kruger National Park and Cape Town. There is more to this country.
You said it, Royo. I mean, one thing that we've got, being on the southern tip of the African continent, we have climatic diversity, and therefore we have incredible scenic diversity, a 3,000-kilometer coastline. We have great cities, vibrant cities. It's not just Cape Town. We have 10 World Heritage Sites. We have more than 20 national parks plus provincial parks. And so it's not just the Kruger National Park. Every park is different and unique. And then we have good infrastructure largely. And then, of course, culture, you know, an abundantly rich cultural diversity, heritage tourism, sports tourism, conference centers. We've got 3 very, very large world-class conference centers, Johannesburg, Durban and Cape Town, then many smaller conference centers. So we've got a lot going for us as a country. It's not just wildlife and scenic beauty. It's the mix. It's so much to do in one country.
But how do you ensure that that is actually fully exploited and perhaps more importantly, the benefits are actually spread throughout the sector, especially when it comes to, townships, villages, and other parts of rural South Africa?
Absolutely. I mean, one is we want tourism to grow. We want the numbers to grow, and we want the results of that tourism growth to extend to as many people as possible. We have seen transformation happening over the last few years. Not enough. We have a tourism charter council that monitors transformation, and they've been operating very effectively. And so we measure the extent to which we are achieving our objective of inclusive tourism growth. We have had some big companies enter the market. Tourvest is a black-owned company. Tsogo Sun is a black-owned company. Township tourism, we've seen it grow. We're giving as much support as we can as a department in the form of enterprise support, enterprise development, training of people, etc. But we would be completely with you that as tourism grows, we must ensure that historically disadvantaged people are well poised to take advantage of the growth opportunities. And in particular, the township tourism can be developed. We've seen it in Soweto. We've seen it with Vilakazi Street. We've seen it in some other townships. But township tourism still stands to be developed and its full potential. Tourists these days, Vuyo, want different kinds of experiences. They want really authentic, more and more want authentic experiences. They like to feel that they are contributing meaningfully to social programs, to environmental programs. Responsible tourism is the order of the day. But for us, I think the challenge is to give as much assistance as we can to allow new entrants into the tourism sector and allow them to enter the tourism sector sustainably and successfully.
Now, with all the talk of a reduced cabinet after elections, there's a great deal of anxiety among many of your stakeholders that they fear that the current focus on tourism might be diluted if it was to be lumped together with, say, environmental affairs or even sports. What's your view?
Well, I think the first thing that was really warmly welcomed by the tourism industry is the extent to which President Ramaphosa has given tourism massive support and really sees it as a growth sector. So that was very encouraging. Whatever the configuration of the new cabinet might be, I don't think the tourism industry, certainly I don't have any fears that tourism will get less attention. Clearly, I mean, it's been announced already that there'll be a smaller, more condensed cabinet, but some combinations are quite useful. In some countries, tourism is linked to arts and culture, to antiquities, and other countries linked to environment. In particular, African countries, tourism is largely linked to environment. By the way, national parks in South Africa, SANParks, is the biggest single provider of bed nights in our country. So the link between, SANParks, SANBI, the Botanical Institution, and tourism would be a very useful link as well.
Minister, before I let you go, you have a tourism indaba next week, but South African tourism is without a CEO. What's happening there?
Well, these are management challenges. What we can pride ourselves as the Department of Tourism, South African tourism, of getting consistent, unqualified audits. We also pride ourselves on zero tolerance for any form of corruption. So when there are matters that require investigation, we don't hesitate. We do what is the right thing to do. And so in this particular case in SA Tourism, I've stayed a little bit distant from it because the board is dealing with it, but they've kept me briefed that there was a case of a whistleblowing. And it was felt by the board that in order to properly investigate, which they have to do, it would be difficult to do the investigation in the presence of the CEO. So they asked the CEO if he could step aside while the investigation is being concluded.
Well, no one seems prepared to even tell us what the charges are. No one seems to know what the charges are, Minister. Do you know what the charges are?
No, because there are no charges. There was a as I said, Vuyo, there was a whistleblowing, and the matters reported by the whistleblower have to be investigated. Following the investigation, of course, there could be disciplinary action, there could be charges, but at this stage there are no charges. As I said, there's a whistleblowing, and we take these matters seriously. So all things going well, the CEO would be able to resume. If there are serious matters that need further investigation or charges to follow, then so be it. But we're certainly not going to sweep problems of this nature under the carpet. We're going to do the right thing, and I believe the public wants us to do the right thing.
And that's where we're going to leave it for tonight, Minister. Thanks very much for your time. The Minister of Tourism, Derek Hanekom. Of course, over 50 million people have visited this country over the past 5 years. But as the Minister also agrees, the sector is really nowhere near reaching its full potential, but government confident that a lot is being done to actually address that problem and make this particular sector the employer of so many South Africans as it promises to be.